all right.
I've just done the 79.
Well, I'm sure everybody's hearing's good. A fire practice is not expected. If the alarm sounds, can all present leave the building as quickly as possible by way of the nearest exit. The designated assembly point is in the public square in front of Cast beyond the fountain, away from the civic office. If there is anybody with mobility issues, please wait in the refuge area at the top of the stairs where the emergency evacuation lift is located, and use the intercom situated to the left-hand side of the lift doors to call for assistance. No roll call will be undertaken. Thank you. Can I remind everybody in addition to ensure that their mobile phone is switched to silent mode, please. This meeting will be audio-visually recorded and will be available to view on the Council's website and YouTube channel. Can I ask all those present to use their microphones to ensure the audio can be captured? Thank you. Any members of the public entering the Council chamber are accepting that their images will be retained and broadcast by the Council. If there are any members of the public or press is intended to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting. If you are visually recording, you are requested to only focus on recording. Apologies for absence. We have Councillor Croatian. Although, unfortunately, we do have several councillors who may have travel disruption, but we will continue with the meeting. To consider the extent to which the public or press can be excluded, I do not see any members of the public, therefore there is nothing on the agenda. If you have an interest, please declare this and a form will need to be completed following the meeting. Please contact Caroline Martin, who can assist you with the process, and I believe the process has already been explained to the councillors who may be involved. Minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of July, which are pages 1 to 8. Can these be approved, please, as a correct record? Yes. Thank you. Right, moving on to public statements. As there are no members of the public present, we shall move on to item 6, which is the Secure Tenancy Agreement Review for 2025, pages 9 to 80 of the agenda pack. The attendees are Mrs Jane Davies, Director of Housing and Customer Services, St Ledgers, and Yvonne Fox, Service Director, Place, City of Doncaster Council. Would the officers please like to introduce themselves?
Thank you, Chair. As said, I'm Mrs Jane Davis. Oh, that sounds very formal. Yeah, I'm Jane. I'm Director of Housing and Customer Services for St Ledger Homes.
And I'm Yvonne Fox. I'm the Service Director for Strategic Housing, Property and Safer Communities. Obviously, any change to the Council's tenancy agreement will need to come through with the agreement of the local authority, and it's done in partnership with St Ledger.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to questions. As members will observe, unfortunately, our Vice Chairman, Councillor Wood, is delayed in traffic, or we believe he's delayed in traffic. So could I ask somebody to take the first question on his behalf? As you can see, I'm quite new to this. Can we ask the officers if they would like to introduce the actual report?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will take it that the report it has been read. Apologies that there is a lot of information. I'm sure you can appreciate we've done a lot of consultation on this. It's a really, really important document. I would like to say the most important document. As Yvonne said, this tenancy agreement belongs to the council. It's between the City of Doncaster Council and the tenants, the council tenants. We as St Leger Homes manage the council tenancies, and therefore we've led on the review of the tenancy agreement. There's very little wrong with the current tenancy agreement, and if it doesn't appear in there's that table of changes document, if something doesn't appear in there, for example, antisocial behaviour, doesn't mean it's not in the tenancy agreement. That document is just the changes. So anything that doesn't feature there that's in the current tenancy agreement will remain in there. So what we've done with this, it was a time where we needed to review the tenancy agreement. There's been lots of changes to legislation, lots of things we want to tighten up on and have a look at. There's also been a review of the tenancy strategy, which has been through this scrutiny committee as well. So any changes arising from that, we needed to reflect in the tenancy agreement. So we've done that. It's taken a while for various reasons. But we've done a lot of tenant consultation on this, very robust tenant consultation with every single tenant in the borough, and I've made sure that we've reflected that in the changes you see before you today.
Thank you, Jane. Yvonne, have you any comment you would like to make?
Just to confirm that St Leger have completed all the relevant statutory consultation that's required in law. It is set out in law exactly what we need to do when we look at reviewing the tenancy agreement. St Leger Homes have complied with all that and consulted with every tenant, providing all the relevant information, has provided details of the changes and considered all the comments that have come in. Some of the items that are now included have been amended following consultation. We have taken on board the views of the tenants and also members of this committee and officers as well and legal advice. So in terms of ensuring that the property is fit for purpose, then I know that the new amended tenancy agreement is fit for purpose and will comply with all legislation.
Thank you. Right, have we gone to the questions? The first question, could I ask Rebecca, in the absence of the Vice Chair, to ask that question, please?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you, Chair. So the question is on behalf of Neil Ward. Has any information from the annual compliments and complaints report been taken into consideration in reviewing the tenancy agreement?
Thank you, Councillor Booth. Yeah, it's a really great question, actually. And the simple answer is yes. What we've done with this is, as I say, we've done lots of tenant consultation, direct tenant consultation, but what we've also done is use the intelligence that we gather from tenants through other sources and other methods, such as complaints and compliments. So absolutely, yes, we have. One thing that has come through loud and clear from this and through the complaints that we receive is that tenants are not very clear on what their rights are or what their responsibilities are. So we've had a lot of feedback from tenants to say, we don't understand, we don't really understand what the tenancy agreement says. Some didn't realise they'd got a tenancy agreement, and I don't mean that in any way of a criticism, but what we've realised is that when tenants become tenants, all they want is a set of keys. They don't want to read a tenancy agreement, so we tend to try and rush through it with them, and then it goes somewhere into the oblivion or in their email box. So we're going to do a really robust piece of work on the back of this, making tenants aware, doing some summary documents, some sessions with tenants around your tenancy agreement explained. So yes, we have, but more so the work that's going to fall out of this with implementation.
Any supplementary question?
I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councillor John Reid, would you like to?
Hi. I won't go into a lot of the lines which are there just for our reference. I'll just ask you the question. Could you please give some examples of what may happen to increase or decrease rents? As it does say, under certain circumstances, rents could go up or down. Some practical examples, please.
Okay, so social housing rents are set down in law. So there is a government formula set down to calculate social housing rents, which we abide by and we manage on behalf of the council. So rent increases or decreases, however that may be, is set down by Consumer Price Index as of September, plus 1%. That is the current government formula for increasing rents. It's estimated that CPI for September will increase because August was around 2%, I think. We don't know yet what September was. We find out middle of October. It's estimated that it's looking like it'll be around 5%. So that would mean 5% plus 1% for the rent increases. So that will be across all the properties. There is something else called rent conversions, which the government has talked about, that we don't know really what's happening with that yet. It's just discussions within government at the moment around whether they're going to bring in rent conversions, which will mean we have the flexibility to increase rents a little bit higher than CPI plus 1%, but that will be lots of discussion then for the council as to whether that's what they want to do. But definitely CPI plus 1% will happen next April.
Thanks. No supplementaries on that one. So the next bit, it says that abuse towards staff, has this been a major problem? Has it driven a change, or is the change just there to protect them even more?
There has been an increase, yes, and it has driven the change. So with the consultation on the tenancy agreement, not only have we consulted with tenants, but we've consulted with our workforce as well, and the council's workforce, and that is one thing that has come through as an emerging problem. And we know that through our health and safety processes that we've got in place, so we get much more incidents reported to us. We have recently had to invest in safety alarms for our staff. They're called, I can't remember the actual name for them, but the pendant type things that they take out with them. So we've had to invest in those. It's not just Doncaster that's a problem, and it's not just in people working in social housing, so that's certainly not me saying that social housing tenants are causing this. It's just a societal, national problem that people are receiving more abuse, and there's all sorts of reasons for it in terms of complexity, frustrations amongst people, but yeah, it is an issue for us.
Thanks. And just to wrap up, our good old pets, the report says that a lot of it is the owner's responsibility, they pay, but there may be some circumstances where they're asked to pay extra for certain things. What, for example, might be a couple of those?
If we find that it is the tenant's responsibility, if they're the cause of the infestation. Property cleanliness is a main one. We get lots of rat infestations in untidy gardens and things like that. So in those circumstances, we would hold the tenant responsible for the cost. We'd ask them to arrange it. We would, but if they weren't doing that, then we would do it and recharge the cost. Yeah, because we certainly wouldn't leave any property requiring that. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. No supplementaries on those three. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Moving on to question 5. Again, as the Vice Chair is not in attendance, I'll ask that question on behalf of Neil. I would like to understand if the tenancy agreement has time frames for leaving council properties after death. If yes, could you please provide an outline of what is included as part of this? what is the maximum amount of time to clear before St Ledger Homes steps in and clear it at the tenant's family's cost?
Hello.
What happens if this is not complied with? What work is being undertaken to further strengthen this area? Thank you, Jane.
Okay, shall I wait till Councillor Wood sits down? It's his question.
Yeah,
You're
if
all
you
right,
would-
don't worry.
If you would.
40 at 1 o'clock, sorry.
Okay.
We're actually on count of 5. I've just asked you a question.
Okay, yep, we're ready. So we allow 2 weeks rent-free period. When a tenant passes away, we allow, if the family requests that, we allow two rent-free weeks to allow them to clear the property. If they want to keep the property longer than that, we do expect that they would fund the rent, and then we would raise an account for that. We don't usually get many families that want it for long periods of time. I know you've asked about what is the maximum length of time. We don't stipulate a maximum. We would stipulate a maximum rent-free period, which is the 2 weeks, but then we don't stipulate, oh, you're only allowed it for another 2 weeks and then you pay for that. I'm not saying we will allow indefinitely, because obviously we've got lots of things to consider, and we would chase that up and we will manage that, but we don't actually put on there that is the maximum time you're allowed. So we would liaise with the family, we would charge the rent after 2 weeks, and we would chase that up if it went on for a lengthy period of time.
Thank you. Have you any supplementary?
So, is there a problem in putting a period of time? Because how I see it is, theoretically, as long as they keep paying rent, they could become the tenant.
I completely understand what you're saying. They wouldn't, because what we'd charge is what we call use and occupation. Mean profit, use and occupation, not rent. So we would be really, really clear. If we're allowing somebody to keep the property on, we'd make it really clear what they wanted to keep it on for, to make sure they weren't living there. So that's one thing. We would make sure they weren't living there, and we would charge use and occupation charges, not rent.
So, what I'm saying is there a reason why we can't put in the tenancy agreement that it's going to be, say, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and put a caveat on that says, with the agreement to St Ledger Homes, we could do it longer. The reason I'm asking is, in my ward, there's currently a property that's empty, the person's died, and the family hasn't emptied the property. And I know of at least 2 people in my ward. One's got, well, they both got ill health, but one's supposed to live in a sterile unit. She's living on her daughter's settee. She's had her circumstances changed, and then to find out there's a property that could potentially be gift to her because the person who was there died, then it does upset people.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and we feel the same. You know, I feel the same. The last thing I absolutely hate to see properties empty when we've got a housing crisis. So yeah, I'm not pleased to hear that, to be quite honest. We should be absolutely on that and managing that closely. I will certainly look at that, and I actually no, I don't see a problem with saying that there's. The only thing I think with putting, say, 4 weeks on, people will think, well, I'm allowed it for 4 weeks, rather than hurrying up and getting it done for 2. What we really want to say is 2, and that's your maximum. And anything over and above that is the exception, and we will liaise with you to get the property back as quickly as possible. That's what it says, and that's what we'd prefer. But we shouldn't be leaving properties empty. Where it gets complicated is death doesn't end a tenancy in law. So unless we've had the keys back and a death certificate, the tenancy still runs in the deceased person's name. the way we have to end a tenancy in such circumstances like that is we have to serve a notice to quit on the public trustee, and it takes ages. It's really annoying. So we're probably going through that process, but if you want to give me the address, I will look into it, and if we're not doing what we should, then I'll sort that out.
What I'm saying is that I think a tenant would take more notice if it's written in his tenancy agreement with a date, rather than just simply, in the event of a death, then the next of kin has to hand a death certificate in and return the keys until... Because to me, it's just a get out of jail free card that they can simply just take as long as they feel, and until you do some sort of enforcement, in some circumstances, they will. I mean, it might be that we have to offer another service, which is, in the event of a death, if you can't go, it was talked about when we were doing the notes, if you couldn't actually get to empty the property because you lived away, for example, is it a service we should offer that says we'll clear it and we'll store it, you'll be charged for it, but at least that way we can get the void put back onto the market?
Yeah, we do that, and we will clear properties and we will store belongings, and what we do is we'll then charge for that storage. So we do that. We don't have storage units, so it can become quite problematic. So we store belongings in empty garages and things like that, which we can come across issues around security and then safety of those belongings. So some people might say, yeah, I want you to store them, but I don't want you storing them in an empty garage. So we do. It's not easy to do, but we do offer that service. And what it says in the tenancy agreement is that 2 weeks is the maximum, and then we'd expect the keys back. And then anything over and above that is an exception.
So that's in the tenancy agreement, because when I read it, I couldn't find the 2 weeks.
In the actual agreement or the document that you've got with...
The PDF that you sent out, the 36 pages or what have you, when you put death in, it does the search. Every opportunity where it says death, it never mentions a period of time, which is the whole point of the question. Now, if it is in the tenancy agreement, it's been a wasted question. But I'm also looking at, we need to have closure, and if it means we've got to have an alternative, such as storage, if it's clear in tenancy agreement, then all bets are off. And if it does has one line that says, with the agreement of St Ledger owns, an alternative could be looked at, i.e. I'm on holiday 2 weeks that they've died, when I come back, so can you give me 4 weeks, 6 weeks, then we can wait with it. But we know that in most cases, 2 weeks, 4 weeks is probably going to be enough anyway.
So the document you've had with the tenancy agreement, apologies because I said this at the beginning, Councillor Wood, is the changes. So anything that's not in that document that's already in the agreement won't feature in that document because it's staying in there. So there is something in the current tenancy agreement that does say that we'll allow 2 weeks maximum, and that is rent free, and anything over and above that would be by exception only. So I can certainly absolutely double, triple check the wording and make sure it says what, because it makes absolute sense what you're saying.
So this goes back to the last meeting, which was, we said we weren't going to be sending an updated full version of tenancy agreement, it's only going to be changes. Well, that's probably a classic example why we do need to send out a full version, because the bit that I've just been talking for the last 10 minutes and you've been talking about, we've already got it covered. And that one to need to be discussed, but I can just see many arguments moving forward with tenants where they say, oh, am I all right to stop for 6 weeks, 8 weeks? And you say, well, it already says in your tenancy agreement. But because they've only got the updated parts, they've lost the old bit. I guarantee that's going to be.
Yeah, and what we do when we send all those changes out, there'll be a covering letter that says all the legal jargon, and it will say your new tenancy agreement, full tenancy agreement document can be found here on the website. If you want a hard copy, let us know and we can provide one. So we will do that.
Any further comments? Right, we'll move on to question 6, which again from Councillor Wood, if you would like to.
Right, so what provision is there for evicting somebody who isn't using the property for nothing less than a postal address?
Okay, so absolutely, it's a condition of tenancy that somebody lives in it, and not just lives in it, but lives in it as their only and principal home. So that is a condition of tenancy. If that's not happening, they're breaching their tenancy agreement. If somebody doesn't live there, they automatically lose their security of tenure straight away. So they're not a secure tenant anymore if they fail to use it as their only and principal home. The issue we have is we have to prove it. So we can't, if somebody's left there and we can't find them, we do all the checks. So we use information from council tax, electoral roll, DWP. If we'll knock on the neighbour's door, we'll try everything and we record everything that we've tried. If we think they've gone, we don't know where they are, we can do what we call implied surrender, which is that we feel they've abandoned it. And we can then change the locks and we end the tenancy. We still serve a notice to quit, but we don't need to go to court because we're satisfied they've left. That's the easiest way. If when we do all those checks, the DWP say, no, they're still claiming benefit, no, they're still on the electoral roll, no, they're still there on the council tax register, the neighbours say, they do nip back and pick the mail up, then we're on a sticky wicket. We've got to go to court. So we serve notice seeking possession under those circumstances because we can't prove they're not there. They're still classed as a secure tenant, and we need to go to court and prove that they're not living there.
So I'm just looking over at Councillor Dennis, but he did actually point out that within some document it did say that we allow the property to be empty for 6 weeks and it wouldn't affect the tenancy. And there were other councillors who also contributed and said in certain circumstances, and I agree, there's situations where you might work for 4 weeks and come back for 4 weeks, so the 6 weeks would be worthwhile. In the case that I'm talking about, I'm looking more at somebody who repeatedly returns but never ever sleeps there. And is that something that we could use as an example of not living there? Meaning they'll literally turn up for the mail, disappear, don't put the head on a pillow, so you can't say that they've returned to shelter, returned from work or what have you. They're doing it for one reason. And is this the reason that you just discussed there about falling through with eviction?
So it does get really complicated with case law around this terminology, only and principal home. So every case is different. If somebody was working away and coming back a few times a year, for example, let's say if somebody works somewhere, if we took them to court, we'd have to prove that they are not using that property as their only and principal home. There's lots and lots of case law around the types of things you've been saying, and where tenants have said, no, I work away. Even though I'm only here 5 nights a year, this is my home. That's not my home. And there is lots of case law. It does get quite complex, but you're absolutely right. We do, probably have tenants that don't stay there very much, but they're still classing it as their only and principal home, and they're still paying the rent.
Councillor Reid, do you still want to supplement a question?
I think Neil has answered it really. It's just that there are various examples in your report of why people may have this absence, but it doesn't actually state work. If someone at the time of application was in the North Sea, 7 weeks on, 7 weeks off, in the Middle East, regularly 4 on months, 4 off, would he have to declare that situation if he was taking on something? Or if he changed to that particular situation, would he have to notify you? So that if you got reports that so-and-so is never seen there, you know by signature authority that he's genuinely working away.
So we couldn't, if he didn't, we can't say it's a breach of tenancy for not letting us know. However, we absolutely would encourage somebody to let us know, and we can put a note on our system and we'll know, one, you know, if anything happens to the property, if there's a leak or anything like that, we'll know. We'll look on our records and we'll go, right, this person works away. So absolutely, we want as much insight into our customers as we can possibly have, so we can serve them. That's the main reason. So it's in the tenancy agreement that we ask people to let us know, but it's not a condition of tenancy that they have to. That makes sense.
It does, because obviously the more you're away, the more risk there is of things going wrong. So long as you're told in some way, that wouldn't stop them getting a tenancy from scratch if they were in that situation, no? Okay. Nothing further, Frank?
Councillor Rob Dennis, you've got a question?
Thank you, Frank. And I was trying to find the section in the changes that sort of outline this, Jane. On page 35, I want to say, or 36, it says that following, after the consultation with the One Voice Forum, they said should not have to give reasons for absence if away from property for more than 6 weeks. And next to that is sort of the action. It says agreed, taken out. So that's all. Is that at odds with what you've just said about sort of still having it in the agreement that it's encouraged to say if they're out for more than 6 weeks?
Yeah, the main thing that the One Voice Forum were getting at is their personal information, that they don't want to have to give personal information around the reasons why they're away from the property, which, we live in a world, don't we, where we've got the right to personal information, etc. So we absolutely took that on board, but we still encourage people to let us know if they're going to be absent. We don't have to know the reason why, but we encourage that we know that for the reasons I've said, really, around if anything goes wrong with the property, then we know what's going on.
I suppose it's just trying to find the right balance between accessing someone's private life, but also managing housing stock that's desperately in need, isn't it? So if that's what's decided, then there we go. Yeah.
No final questions. Right, we'll move on to question number 7. And again, Councillor Rob Dennis, please.
It's me again. Jane, Town Ward, we've got the high-rise flats at Alby Bridge. There's 3 pieces of legislation referenced in the changes to the agreement about high-rises. How has that and how will that be communicated to residents in the high-rise flats?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we're doing some really intensive communication work at the moment with tenants in high-rise flats. As you know, there's lots of work going on, lots of fabric improvements going on. So constant communication around that. But we've got other things around antisocial behaviour happening, and then changes to legislation, as you quite rightly point out. So how we've done communication with high-rise tenants before is we've recently done a leaflet drop around the changes and around the work that we're doing in the high-rise flats. We've done further communication around the closure orders that we've just got in place. So we find that door knocking is the most effective in the high-rise, and we've got the capacity to do that because we've got quite intensive staff there that work in the office all the time. There's no home working, they're always in the office. So we've got really good communication with high-rise tenants, and we sort of bring partners up to date as well. So all the waits and people that are working around there, they know they're also on board with all of these changes if they get questions. We've had with high-rise as well, what sometimes worked is drop-in sessions. So we've had drop-in sessions in different parts of the estates, in the Stirling Centre, for example, in Milton Court. So we've done that before. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So we'll try. We have looked at, in high-rise buildings as well, these, like they've got in doctor's surgeries, television screens with updates of things on and information. We've looked at those, and we've... because we've got, as part of the Fire Safety Act, we've got to have specific engagement strategies for every block, which we've got. And part of those, the actions within that, is to look at these TV screens to see if if we need to bring those in, they're expensive. That's the only thing I'll say. They're really expensive. And I'm not saying that's a reason not to have them, but we're trying to think, you know, is it value for money? So, yeah, all sorts of things that we've done that do work.
Thank you.
As a supplementary to that, Jane, it's positive to hear the work that is ongoing. I'd probably say from a ward member's perspective on this specifically, I'd want to know sort of what the output of that is, sort of how many residents were engaged with. And again, for the high-rise consultation areas, for the tenancy agreement as well, did you work with the TARA groups as well for the different areas?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we absolutely did. We did the surveys that are in the PAT. They were mainly through the tenants and residents associations, other tenants as well in what we call our Get Involved group. But yes, yeah, we absolutely did.
You got one, Steve?
Thank you. And just about Jane up there, as a board member that I fill my paperwork in the meetings there are residents from the high rises that attend the meetings as well to feed in.
Thank you. No further questions? Right, we'll move on to question 8. Back to you, Councillor.
Cheers, Frank. This is probably more specifically in my area or my ward. I've seen this. There's areas that seem to be part of a property but outside of the property itself. So the question that I'm asking is, are tenants made aware of their full obligation to what their area is that they're supposed to be renting? So the example I've given is that some properties in my ward have blocked paving areas just outside the gates where the drive might be. Is that part of their property, isn't it? If it is, should they be maintaining it or shouldn't they? That's what my question is.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Yes, they do. So we do an accompanied viewing on all new tenancies, and the housing officer does let them know what they are responsible for and what that includes. There are some areas, particularly around flats, let's say drying areas, paved areas, that are a little bit, and shared areas, they can be a particular problem, if I'm being really honest. And we do absolutely do our best to manage that. We've just developed a new policy, actually. I'm trying to think of what the name is, something really innovative like paths policy. But there is, because we've recognised that it is a bit of an area where tenants are asking lots of questions around what am I responsible for. So we have just developed a policy that's going to the next board, Steve. That'll be riveting, about paths. So there we are. We can let you have a copy of it once it's approved.
Thank you. Supplementary, no? No. Right. Right, well, we'll move on to the next question. Question 9. Once again, back to you, Neil.
Thanks, Chair. Right, so we were in a meeting I think it was over in Scrutiny management overall, and there was something discussed regarding charging back for failed entry attempts for, say, gas or electricity testing. So the question that I'm looking at is, what charges are they charging back full cost of executing a warrant for entry into a property when the tenant has failed to work with St Ledger Homes? Do we charge the full amount back? The impression I got was we only charged for, say, the lock, not all the legals that went with it, the locksmith that went with it, the inconvenience administration. Okay,
I'm not sure I can fully answer this question, so I might have to consult and come back to you. So if we charge for a lock change, we will charge for everything that goes with it. So there'll be a schedule of rates and it includes labour and materials, so it will be the whole thing. Whether we charge for the warrant, so for example, gas, if we have to get a warrant and gain entry, I'm not 100% sure whether we charge the cost of the warrant. I would sit here and say yes, but I'll need to absolutely triple check that, so I'll certainly come back to you on that if that's okay.
The reason I'm asking, I think in the meeting, what Chris was in, there were 477 instances. And I know personally that in a business, say for example, somebody comes to check your meter and you're not available, they'll charge £60 just for turning up, even if they don't get in. So I'm thinking if it's going to cost £100 per property, that's £47,000 it's cost us if we're not charging back.
It is a massive problem for us, and we have done a recent piece of work around no access, because it's not just gas, it's electrical testing now that's gone legislative every 5 years. So, and we've got all sorts of other compliance in high rise, fire safety checks, loads of things that we need to get into properties every year. We've looked at doing MOTs for those more higher risk tenants that have said, I can't be in, or I don't want to let you in. Can we get everybody there on one day and do everything on one day? That's really hard to deliver, if I'm honest, but we are looking at that, and we're looking at more proactive communication, all that sort of thing, to try and reduce the number of no access visits. It is a problem because the law says we've got to visit 3 times for every single job before we can start any enforcement action, and that is a massive cost to us. And you're absolutely right. There's hundreds and hundreds of tenancies where we're struggling to get in, and then the ones that we then have to take enforcement action on. So we've just developed a new team actually that is dedicated to working with those tenants who are not allowing us access.
John, I believe you have a supplementary question.
Jane, I'd be very grateful if you could follow up on that, because at a previous question, Chris did say, on Neil's example, pay for the lock only. So if you could check up on that.
Chris said pay for lock only, did he? Right, okay, right, I'll get that sorted. Yeah, we'll double check on it.
Just a supplementary question, sorry, from me. Regarding the cost of the warrant, can you come back to us on that one, Jane, as to whether there is a recharge?
Absolutely, I will, yeah. Chair.
Sorry, supplementary.
Yeah, just in addition to them. So all the questions that we've asked so far, because I didn't realise that it was only the updates, can I assume that these will be taken into consideration, or have been taken into consideration in the tenancy agreement? So, such as we've just talked there about warrants and chargeback. If it's already in, great. If it isn't in, can we consider how we can put it in? Because I think this year might have been 477, but it don't take many recharges before that 477 will come down to a lesser number. Because a lot of people will start to complain if they know they're going to be charged an amount of money like that.
Absolutely, and there is some changes around no access, so we've certainly strengthened that around no access and the action that we will take. But yeah, I'll make sure, and recharges as well, we've strengthened the information around recharges, what we will and won't recharge for. So certainly I will make sure that the wording on the property after death is right, and I'll make sure that the cost of the warrant, whether we do or we don't, is included in there, yeah.
Thank you for that, Jane. Any further questions? Sorry, Rob, yes, you've got...
Thank you. Jane, on the consultations, do you know how many individual tenants were provided responses as part of the various consultations?
Yes, there is there should be, one of the appendices is a consultation document, and there should be throughout that some, because there's various different types of consultation we've done. So we consulted with One Voice Forum, Tenant Scrutiny Panel, the surveys with the Tenants and Residents Associations. We've had a questionnaire on the website. And then we did the legislative consultation, which was the letter and the changes to every tenant. And Not many, if I'm being honest, and that wasn't for want of trying on our part. I think just over 100 responses we got out of 20,000. And the main response that people came back with from that consultation, sending out to everybody, was around, we don't understand our tenancy agreement. We don't have a tenancy agreement. So that's what's prompted us to do this further work.
So that's less than 1% of the overall tenancy agreements that people responded to. Would it be helpful to set a target of 1% for the next review, so that it provided that impetus for St Ledger to keep this engagement work ongoing, to educate people about what the tenancy agreement is, what their rights are and responsibilities are, and hopefully so that a better response rate is secured next time round?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we're going to be doing this work. And the work that I'm saying about explaining people's tenancy agreement won't just be a one-off to implement this. We'll make sure we continue to do these sessions around tenancy agreement workshops, tenancy condition workshops, making sure we've got everything explained. We're reviewing how we do our sign-up process. As I said, we've found that people just want a set of keys, so we go back and visit people 4 weeks later, but we're thinking about a video, for example, having that on the website, showing it at different periods of a tenancy. So yeah, you're absolutely right. We will continue to engage tenants in their tenancy agreement.
Thank you, Jane. Could I perhaps make that as a recommendation then, that for the next... I propose as a recommendation then for the next tenancy review to secure at least 1% of tenancy agreement responses afterwards.
Thank you for that. Are there any further questions you would like to put to the...
When you mentioned many replied to you saying, oh, we don't understand it, or we don't have it, those, you put a reference that they can get it. Would that be their existing one that they took, or the proposed new one?
So as part of the consultation, it would be the existing one, and we have provided people with their tenancy agreement. It is on the website, and as I say, we've pointed people to that, but if people want a hard copy, absolutely, we've given them their current tenancy agreement, and they will get their new tenancy agreement as part of that same process.
So if they want to know what the changes are, they can get the old one, and then they'll get that documentation of the changes.
Yes.
So they've got to run with the other,
Yeah.
or wait for the new one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Supplementary question from me, Jane, actually. I mean, the process of rent collection has changed dramatically, and the process of actually consulting. I mean, in past years, yeah, we went round with a leaflet, handed it in, and posted it back. Because of the cost of posting today, and the restrictions on where you can pay your rent and how are you finding that, in respect of consultation?
We do, thank you, Chair. We do lots of consultation online. We use email addresses, mostly digital consultation, if I'm honest. We do quite a lot of drop-ins and in-person things that way. But consultation, we don't very often post things out these days. However, with the tenancy agreement, it's a rather old-fashioned legislation, everybody has to be consulted by post. They have to receive this information through their door. So it's either we send somebody out to knock on the door and give it to them, or we post it, and the cost is really high.
No, thank you. Any further questions? I'll remember it one of these days. Now discussion is finished, I would like to move to the recommendations. Does the panel feel like it has reviewed the information provided today? Thank you. Can I ask if there are any additional recommendations? If so, what are they, and what is the supporting reason for the recommendation? Yep.
I just want to clarify the recommendations made. So I've got one from Councillor Dennis about increasing the response rate up to 1%, and I take it that's to just increase responses and strengthen the feedback and that. So I just want to clarify that. And
Yeah, that's correct, to strengthen the feedback and the robustness of the tenancy agreement as well.
And then secondly, Councillor Ward asked about comments taken in consideration before the final decision is made. So that's around two things, and this is where I'm unclear. Charges around no access, is that right?
Charges associated with no access, yeah.
Yeah, and wording after death when you have to leave, the time, is that around the time frame? So those two things I'm just going to pull out in the recommendation, right? That's obviously to strengthen what's been, make sure it's there. Right, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to 3.1, note the outcome of the consultation undertaken with tenants and other stakeholders. Thank you. 3.2, to consider and support the proposed changes to the secure tenancy agreement detailed in Appendix 3, Notice of Variation. Line by line changes to secure tenancy agreement to ensure legal timescales are met for the changes to take effect from the 1st of January 2026. Thank you. And finally, 3.3, consider the recommendation regarding successions following death of a tenant as part of the wider changes to the tenancy agreement. Is this agreed? Agreed. Thank you. I will now introduce Caroline Martin to outline the report. Does the panel note the report?
Do you want me to highlight any changes?
All of what you've already highlighted.
Okay.
Right, I will introduce Caroline Martin to outline the report. Okay, thank you, Caroline.
So it's just a quick note of the work plan, forward plan attached in the agenda pack. So I just want to highlight what's coming up. Two things, we're going to arrange some kind of meeting on a local plan update. And then secondly, which is further down the line in March, that's going to be around the major schemes. And if I just remind myself, as I forgot, around homelessness and rough sleeping strategy, and I think there's something around an update on Mexborough as well, Mexborough development. So that's the work plan. Regarding the forward plan, apart from the tenancy agreement today, there's nothing else particularly relevant to the panel. There's mainly a lot of the finance and performance reports, which obviously everyone's always welcome to input any questions through the chair or attend or put forward questions yourself. And there's also the borough strategy refresh on there. So I just wanted to note those things, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Caroline. So does the panel note the report? Sorry, does the panel note the report? Yeah. Thank you. Therefore, I would now like to close the meeting and thank you all for your attendance today and input. Thank you.